The white dress felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Rachel stood in the bridal suite of the Grand Plaza Hotel, staring at herself in the mirror. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair was styled exactly how she'd imagined. Everything should have been perfect. But her phone kept buzzing with messages from her fiancé, and each one made her stomach drop a little more. "We need to talk. I can't do this. I'm sorry." She tried calling him. No answer. She called again. Still nothing. The wedding was supposed to start in 20 minutes. 200 guests were already seated downstairs. The flowers were arranged. The cake was ready. Everything was paid for and prepared. Her hands shook as she opened the latest message. This one was different. This one was longer. "I can't marry you. I'm in love with someone else. I've been seeing her for months. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but I can't pretend anymore. Don't try to contact me." Rachel felt the room spin. She grabbed the edge of the vanity table to steady herself. Someone else? For months? Who? Her mind raced through every interaction. Every late night he claimed he was working, every weekend business trip. How had she missed it? Her maid of honor knocked on the door. "Rachel, everyone's waiting." "Are you ready?" She couldn't speak. She just stared at her phone, reading the message over and over, hoping the words would somehow change. They didn't. "Rachel?" The knocking got louder. "What's happening? Is everything okay?" She finally opened the door. Her best friend took one look at her face and knew something was terribly wrong. Rachel showed her the message without saying a word. "That coward," her friend whispered. "That absolute coward. He couldn't even tell you in person?" But there was more. Rachel's phone buzzed again. This time it was a photo. Her fiancé and her younger sister, Katie, kissing. The caption read, "We're in love. We're leaving together." The guest deserved to know the truth. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. Her sister. Her own sister. The girl she'd grown up with, shared secrets with, protected and supported through everything. How long had this been going on? How many times had Katie sat with her, helping her plan this wedding, knowing she was sleeping with the groom? Rachel's friend grabbed the phone. "That's it. I'm going down there. I'm telling everyone the wedding is off." "No," Rachel said quietly. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "I'll do it. They deserve to hear it from me." She walked down the grand staircase like she was moving through water. Everything felt slow and unreal. The guests turned to look at her, expecting a beautiful bride. Instead, they saw someone barely holding herself together. Her mother rushed up to her. "Darling, what are you doing? You're supposed to wait for your entrance music. Where's Brian? Why isn't he at the altar?" "He's not coming," Rachel said. Her voice cracked. "He's not coming because he's in love with Katie." Her mother's face went pale. "What? That's impossible." "Katie would never—" "He sent me a photo, Mom. They've been having an affair for months." The whispers started immediately. 200 people all talking at once. Rachel stood there, still in her wedding dress, feeling like the biggest fool in the world. She'd spent $30,000 on this wedding. She'd invited everyone she knew. She'd planned every detail for 8 months. Her father appeared from somewhere in the crowd. "Where's Katie?" "Where is she?" "She left with him," Rachel said. "They're together." Her father pulled out his phone and called Katie. Rachel could hear it ringing, then going to voicemail. He tried again. Same thing. On the third try, Katie finally answered. "Katie, what have you done?" Her father's voice boomed through the quiet hall. Everyone was listening now, not even pretending to look away. Rachel couldn't hear Katie's response, but she saw her father's face turn red. "How could you do this to your sister? How could you be so selfish?" He hung up and turned to Rachel, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and pity. But then her mother spoke, and everything got worse. Maybe if Rachel had been more exciting, more fun, Brian wouldn't have looked elsewhere. Her mother said quietly, but not quietly enough. Several guests heard. "Katie is more spontaneous, more lively. Men need that." Rachel felt like she'd been slapped. Her own mother was defending Katie, blaming her for being cheated on. Are you seriously taking Katie's side right now? Rachel's voice was louder than she intended. "She slept with my fiancé. She helped me plan this wedding while sneaking around behind my back." Her mother looked uncomfortable. "I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying that relationships take work. And maybe you weren't giving Brian what he needed." That was it. Rachel couldn't stay there another second. She turned and ran, the ridiculous train of her wedding dress trailing behind her. She heard people calling her name, but she didn't stop. She just needed to get out, to breathe, to be anywhere but in that room full of pitying stares and whispered judgments. She ran until she found herself in a small park across from the hotel. Her feet hurt. The dress was dirty at the hem. Her carefully styled hair was falling apart. She collapsed onto a bench and finally let herself cry. Not quiet, dignified tears. Big, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "Are you okay?" She looked up to see a man standing a few feet away. He was dressed simply in jeans and a plain shirt, holding a bag of groceries. He looked genuinely concerned, not curious or nosy. "Just kind. Does it look like I'm okay?" She snapped, then immediately felt bad. "Sorry, that was rude." He sat down on the other end of the bench, keeping a respectful distance. "No need to apologize. You're wearing a wedding dress in a park and crying. I'm guessing the wedding didn't go well." Something about his calm, matter-of-fact tone made her laugh despite everything. That's one way to put it. "My fiancé dumped me by text message and ran off with my sister. Oh, and my mom thinks it's my fault for being boring." The stranger winced. "That's rough. Really rough. For what it's worth, anyone who dumps someone by text on their wedding day isn't worth marrying anyway. Tell that to my family. They all seem to think I deserved it." He pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket and offered it to her. Who even carried handkerchiefs anymore? She took it and wiped her face, knowing her makeup was completely ruined by now. They sat in silence for a while. It should have been awkward, sitting with a complete stranger in a wedding dress in a public park. But somehow it wasn't. He didn't try to give her advice or tell her everything would be okay. He just sat there, a quiet presence that made her feel less alone. "I'm Rachel, by the way," she finally said. "Michael," he replied. "Nice to meet you. Sorry about the circumstances." Another silence. Then, before she could stop herself, Rachel heard herself saying something completely insane. "Will you marry me?" Michael blinked. "What?" "Right now, today, I have a marriage license. I have a dress. I have 200 people who came to see a wedding. Why not give them one?" She was talking faster now, the idea taking shape even as she spoke. "I'll pay you. Name your price. I just need to show them all that I don't need Brian, that I can move on just fine without him." "That's a terrible reason to get married," Michael said, but he didn't get up and leave. I know it's crazy, but I'm so tired of being the one everyone feels sorry for. The boring one, the one who got left behind. Just this once, I want to be the one who surprises everyone." Michael studied her face for a long moment. She expected him to laugh, to walk away, to tell her she was having a breakdown. Instead, he asked, "Are you sure about this?" "Absolutely not," Rachel admitted. "But I'm doing it anyway." "If we do this," Michael said slowly, "we do it properly. No money. If I'm going to marry you, even for show, I'm not doing it as a paid actor. We do it at City Hall, just the two of us. Clean and simple." Rachel stared at him. Was he actually agreeing to this? "You're serious?" "You're clearly having the worst day of your life," Michael said with a small smile. "And honestly, I've had worse ideas. Let's go get you married, Rachel." And just like that, still wearing her wedding dress, Rachel got up and walked toward City Hall with a stranger named Michael, about to make either the best or worst decision of her life. City Hall was quiet on a Saturday afternoon. Rachel and Michael stood in front of a bored-looking clerk who barely glanced at them before asking for their IDs and marriage license. Rachel handed over the license she'd gotten for her wedding to Brian. The clerk didn't notice or care that the groom's name had been crossed out and replaced. 2 janitors agreed to be their witnesses. The ceremony took less than 5 minutes. No flowers, no music, no family watching. Just a few words, 2 signatures, and suddenly Rachel was married to a man she'd met 30 minutes ago in a park. "Well," Michael said as they walked out of the building, "that's done. What now?" Rachel hadn't thought that far ahead. The adrenaline that had pushed her through the ceremony was fading fast, and reality was starting to sink in. "I have no idea. My apartment is in Brian's name. I can't go back there. You can stay with me," Michael offered. "I have a spare room. It's not much, but it's clean and safe." She should have said no. She should have called a friend, checked into a hotel, done literally anything other than go home with a stranger. But she was exhausted, heartbroken, and all her friends were probably still at the hotel dealing with the aftermath of her canceled wedding. So she said yes. Michael's apartment was in an older building on the east side of the city. The elevator was slow and creaky. The hallway needed paint. But when he opened the door to his apartment, Rachel was surprised. It was small but immaculate. Hardwood floors, clean white walls, big windows that let in lots of light, and books everywhere. "Sorry about the mess," Michael said, though there wasn't any mess that Rachel could see. "I wasn't expecting company." "It's nice," Rachel said honestly. "Really nice." The furniture was simple but good quality. What caught her attention was the art on the walls. 3 paintings that looked expensive, the kind you'd see in galleries. She moved closer to one, trying to read the signature. "Are these originals?" she asked. "Reproductions," Michael said quickly. "I found them at a flea market. The frames alone were worth the price." Rachel nodded, but something felt off about that explanation. The painting looked too good to be a reproduction. The brushstrokes had texture, depth, but she was too tired to question it. "The spare room is through here." Michael showed her a small bedroom with a comfortable-looking bed and more bookshelves. "Bathroom is across the hall. Take your time. I'll make some tea." Rachel finally got out of the wedding dress. She found some old jeans and a sweater in the small bag she'd brought to the hotel that morning. A lifetime ago, when she still thought she was marrying Brian, she caught sight of herself in the bathroom mirror. Her makeup was a disaster, her hair a mess, but the worst part was her eyes. They looked empty, shocked. She was married. To a stranger. What had she done? When she came out, Michael had made tea and set out some cookies on the small kitchen table. He'd changed into comfortable clothes too and was typing something on his laptop. "I should call my parents," Rachel said, sitting down. "Let them know I'm okay." She pulled out her phone. 17 missed calls, 42 text messages. Most were from her mother, increasingly angry. A few from friends asking where she was. 3 from Katie, which she deleted without reading. And 1 from her father. "Your mother is furious. Come home immediately so we can figure out how to handle this mess." People are talking. People were talking. That's what worried them. Not that she was hurt or upset. Not that her fiancé had betrayed her, and her sister had stabbed her in the back. Just that people were talking. Rachel called her mother instead of texting back. Her mother answered on the first ring. "Where are you? Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Everyone's asking questions and I don't know what to tell them." "I'm fine, thanks for asking," Rachel said coldly. "I'm safe. That's all you need to know. Don't take that tone with me. You ran out of there like a crazy person." Your father had to explain everything to the guests. It was humiliating. It was humiliating for you? Really, what about me? My fiancé left me for my sister on my wedding day. If you had been a better partner, maybe Brian wouldn't have looked elsewhere. Katie is young and fun and exciting. You've always been so serious, so focused on work. Men need attention, Rachel. They need to be kept interested. The words hit like poison darts, each one finding a vulnerable spot. "I can't believe you're blaming me for being cheated on." "I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying there are lessons to learn here. Now come home so we can talk about this properly. We need to do damage control." "I'm not coming home," Rachel said. Her voice was steady now, calm. "And I have news. I got married today." Silence on the other end. "Then what?" "I got married. At City Hall. I met someone and we got married." "You're lying. You're upset and not thinking clearly. Come home right now. His name is Michael. We're married. I'll send you a photo of the certificate if you don't believe me." "This is insane. You've known him for what, a few hours?" "This isn't you, Rachel. You don't do impulsive things." "Maybe that was the problem," Rachel said. "Maybe I should have been more impulsive all along. Goodbye, Mom." She hung up before her mother could respond. Her hands were shaking, but she felt oddly relieved. Michael had listened to the whole conversation without saying anything. Now he looked at her with something like respect. "That took guts," he said simply. "That took stupidity," Rachel corrected. "My whole family is going to lose their minds. Do you regret it?" "The marriage, I mean." Rachel thought about it. "Ask me in a week. Right now, I'm too numb to regret anything." Over the next few days, Rachel started settling into the strangest routine of her life. Michael left early every morning for work at a community center across town. He helped run programs for kids and seniors, he said. It didn't pay much, but he liked it. He'd come home in the evening, cook dinner, and spend his evenings reading or working on his laptop. Rachel started looking for her own job. She'd quit her position at the marketing firm when she and Brian had planned to move to his new office location. Now she had no job, no savings to speak of, and a husband who lived in a modest apartment and worked at a community center. But something strange kept happening. Little things that didn't add up. Like the first morning when Michael was making coffee and Rachel noticed his watch. It looked expensive. Really expensive. When she asked about it, he said it was a gift from a friend. But who gave their friend a watch that looked like it cost more than a car? Or the way he spoke on the phone sometimes. She'd hear him talking in what sounded like business language, discussing investments and market trends and corporate strategy. That didn't match with someone who worked at a community center. Then there was the laptop. Rachel knew computers. She'd worked in tech marketing for 5 years. Michael's laptop was top of the line, the kind CEOs and high-level executives used. It had security features she'd only seen in corporate environments. "What exactly do you do at the community center?" she asked him one evening while they were having dinner. "I help coordinate programs," Michael said. "After-school activities, senior citizen events, that kind of thing." "And the consulting work you mentioned? What's that about?" He hesitated for just a moment. "I do some freelance work, helping small businesses with strategy and planning. Nothing major." In Mandarin, Rachel had heard him on the phone that morning, speaking fluently in what sounded like business Mandarin. She'd studied it in college and could pick up enough to know he was discussing some kind of deal. Michael looked surprised that she'd noticed. "I have some international clients. It pays better than the community center work." It was a reasonable explanation, but Rachel's instincts, the same ones that had somehow missed Brian's affair, were telling her there was more to the story. She just couldn't figure out what. Meanwhile, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Katie had sent a long message trying to explain herself. She claimed she hadn't meant for it to happen, that she and Brian had just connected, that love couldn't be controlled. She even had the nerve to say she hoped they could still be sisters. Rachel deleted it without responding. Brian texted too, asking if they could talk. He wanted to explain things properly. Rachel blocked his number. Her parents kept calling, demanding she come home for a family meeting. She ignored them. The only person she talked to was her best friend Lisa, who had been her maid of honor. Lisa called one evening while Michael was out grocery shopping. "I can't believe you actually married a random stranger," Lisa said, but she sounded more impressed than judgmental. "That's the most un-Rachel thing you've ever done." "I know. I keep waiting to wake up and realize it was all a bad dream." "What's he like? Is he weird?"
"Are you safe?"
"He's actually really nice," Rachel admitted. "Quiet, respectful kind. He hasn't pressured me about anything. We're just roommates who happen to be legally married. And what's the long-term plan here?" That was the question Rachel had been avoiding. "I have no idea. We haven't talked about it. I guess we'll just see what happens." After she hung up, Rachel sat on the couch thinking about her life. A week ago, she'd been planning to marry Brian, start a family, build what she thought was a perfect future. Now she was living in a strange apartment with a strange man who she barely knew, but had somehow trusted enough to marry. Michael came home with groceries and started making dinner. He was a good cook, much better than Brian had ever been. They ate together in comfortable silence, and Rachel realized something surprising. She wasn't unhappy. She wasn't happy either, not yet. But she wasn't drowning in misery like she'd expected to be. Maybe it was because Michael didn't treat her like a victim. He didn't ask constant questions or offer unwanted advice. He just gave her space to figure things out. "Thank you," she said suddenly. "For what?" "For agreeing to this crazy plan. For giving me a place to stay. For not making this weird." Michael smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "You're welcome. For what it's worth, you're a pretty good roommate. You don't leave dishes in the sink and you're quiet in the mornings. That's all I really ask for." They both laughed. And for the first time since her wedding day disaster, Rachel felt like maybe, just maybe, she was going to be okay. 3 weeks into the strangest marriage of all time, Rachel decided to start her own business. She'd always loved making jewelry, tiny, delicate pieces that she'd given as gifts to friends. Brian had called it a hobby, said it was cute but not a real career. Now, with no job and too much time to think, she figured why not try. She set up a small workstation in the corner of Michael's living room. Beads wire tools all spread out on a folding table. She took photos of her pieces with her phone and posted them on social media. Nothing fancy, just a simple page showing what she could make. Michael came home from the community center and found her hunched over a necklace, trying to get the clasp right. "That's beautiful," he said, leaning over her shoulder. "The design is really elegant. Clean lines, balanced proportions." Rachel looked up at him. "You sound like you know something about jewelry design." I know a bit about design in general, he said. Have you thought about your target market? Who are you making these for? People who like jewelry? Michael smiled. That's everyone. You need to be more specific. What age group? What's their income level? Are they buying for themselves or as gifts? What occasions? Once you know exactly who your customer is, you can design specifically for them and price accordingly. Rachel blinked. That was way more detailed than she expected. How do you know all this? Did you run a business or something? I've done some consulting work, he said vaguely. Helped a few startups get organized. The principles are pretty much the same whether you're selling jewelry or software. Over dinner, Michael asked her more questions about her business plan. What were her costs? How did she plan to fulfill orders? What about shipping? Quality control? Customer service? Rachel realized she hadn't thought about most of these things. She'd just planned to make pretty things and hope people bought them. You need a proper business plan, Michael said. Here, let me show you something. He pulled out his laptop and opened a document. Within 20 minutes, he'd created a basic template for her, with sections for market analysis, cost projections, marketing strategy, and growth plans. It looked professional, like something a business consultant would charge hundreds of dollars to create. This is amazing, Rachel said. Thank you. But seriously, what kind of consulting do you do? This is really advanced stuff. Just basic business strategy, Michael said. But he closed his laptop quickly like he didn't want her to see what else was on there. Rachel's jewelry business started slowly. She made a few sales to friends, then friends of friends. One of her necklaces got shared by someone with 10,000 followers, and suddenly she had 20 orders in one day. She was excited but panicked. She didn't have enough supplies to fulfill all those orders. I need to find a supplier fast, she told Michael that evening. But the good ones require minimum orders and I don't have that kind of money. Michael made a phone call. He spoke in Mandarin again, fast and businesslike. Rachel tried to listen, but her Mandarin wasn't good enough to catch everything. She heard numbers, heard what sounded like negotiation, heard him using phrases that sounded authoritative, commanding. He hung up and turned to her. Okay, I called a friend who works in import-export. He can get you set up with a supplier. They'll work with your order sizes and the prices are fair. Just like that? How? I did him a favor once. He owes me. Don't worry about it. The next day, Rachel received an email from a supplier she'd never heard of. They offered her premium materials at prices better than she'd found anywhere else, with flexible order quantities and fast shipping. When she tried to thank Michael, he just shrugged it off. But Rachel was starting to notice a pattern. Whenever she had a problem, Michael made a phone call and the problem went away. When her laptop broke, he knew a guy who fixed it for free. When she needed business cards, he had a contact at a printing company who gave her a huge discount. When she mentioned wanting to learn more about online marketing, he sent her links to courses that usually cost hundreds of dollars but were somehow available to her for free. None of it made sense for someone who worked at a community center making barely enough to cover rent. One afternoon, while Michael was at work, Rachel decided to do what she'd been thinking about for days. She Googled him, just his name and the city they lived in. At first, nothing unusual came up. A few social media profiles that looked right, his community center job listed, some volunteer work, normal stuff. But then she tried adding different search terms. Michael and business, Michael and consultant, Michael and investment. One result caught her eye. A 3-year-old article from a business magazine about young entrepreneurs. She almost scrolled past it, but then she saw the name. Michael Torres, CEO of Torres Enterprises. The article was mostly about his company's charitable work, but it mentioned that he was worth over $500 million. She stared at the screen. Same name, same city. But the photo in the article was taken at some fancy gala, and the man was wearing an expensive suit. She couldn't see his face clearly. Could it be the same person? She searched for Torres Enterprises. It was a real company, a tech conglomerate with offices around the world. The CEO's name was listed as Michael Torres, but there were no recent photos on the website. Just generic corporate headshots that didn't show enough detail to be sure. Rachel closed her laptop. She was being paranoid. There were probably lots of people named Michael Torres in the city. Just because some rich CEO had the same name didn't mean it was her husband. Her husband who lived in a modest apartment and worked at a community center. But the watch, the laptop, the phone calls, the connections, the way he talked about business like someone who'd been doing it for years at a high level. That evening, she couldn't help herself. "Michael, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure," he said. He was cooking stir-fry and the kitchen smelled amazing. "Have you ever been married before?" "No, this is my first time," he smiled. "Though admittedly, it's not under typical circumstances." "Why did you say yes? When I proposed in the park that day, why did you agree to marry a stranger who was clearly having a breakdown?" Michael was quiet for a moment, stirring the food. "Honestly, I've spent a lot of my life watching people pretend to be things they're not. Pretending to care about things that don't matter. You were the most real person I'd seen in a long time. You were hurt and angry and making terrible decisions, but you were real. I respected that. Even though I was using you to get back at my ex, you were honest about it. That's more than most people are." Rachel wanted to ask more, wanted to push him on the business questions, on the mysterious phone calls, on everything that didn't add up. But something stopped her. Maybe she was afraid of the answers. Or maybe she was afraid he'd ask her to leave if she got too nosy. Her phone rang. Her mother. Again. Rachel had been avoiding her family for weeks, but she knew she couldn't put it off forever. She answered. "Finally," her mother said. "We need to talk about this ridiculous marriage of yours." "There's nothing to talk about. I'm married. It's done. To a man who works at a community center." "Rachel, be realistic. How are you going to live? What kind of future does he have?" "We're doing fine. I'm starting my own business, actually." Her mother laughed. It wasn't a kind laugh. "Your little jewelry hobby? That's not a business. You need a real job or you need to find a real husband. This Michael person is just a placeholder until you come to your senses." "He's a good person," Rachel said. Her voice was firm. "He's kind and supportive and he treats me with respect. That's more than Brian ever did. Brian made a mistake. He's been asking about you. He wants to apologize. Maybe if you two talked." "Are you seriously suggesting I should talk to the man who left me at the altar for my sister?" "Your sister made a mistake too. She's young. She didn't think it through. They broke up, you know. After 2 weeks, he realized he loved you all along." Rachel felt a surge of anger so strong it surprised her. "Let me be very clear. I don't care what Brian realized. I don't care that he and Katie broke up. I moved on. I'm married to someone else. Tell Brian to leave me alone. Tell Katie to do the same and stop calling me unless you can be supportive." She hung up before her mother could respond. Her hands were shaking. Michael had heard the whole thing from the kitchen. "Your ex wants you back?" he asked carefully. "Apparently, but only because his affair with my sister fell apart. Turns out she was just as unstable as everyone warned him." "Are you tempted?" Rachel thought about it honestly. "No. I'm angry that he thinks he can just apologize and fix everything. I'm angry that my family thinks I should give him another chance. But I'm not tempted to go back. That life, that person I was with him, it wasn't real. He didn't love me. He loved the idea of me." Michael nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice, both in leaving him and in not going back. Even though you barely know me, I know enough. You're strong, creative, and you don't let people walk over you. Those are pretty important qualities." They ate dinner in comfortable silence. Rachel found herself watching Michael, really watching him. He had an interesting face, not conventionally handsome but distinctive. Kind eyes, a smile that made her feel safe. He was nothing like Brian, who'd been all flash and charm and empty promises. Later that night, Rachel got a message on her business account. Someone wanted to place a large order for a corporate event. 50 custom necklaces, high budget, tight deadline. It was the kind of opportunity that could really launch her business, but it was also terrifying. She'd never done anything that big before. She showed Michael the message. "I don't know if I can handle this." "What if I mess it up?" "You won't," he said confidently. "You're talented and organized. But you'll need help. You can't make 50 pieces by yourself in 2 weeks." "I can't afford to hire anyone." Michael thought for a moment. "What if I help? I have flexible hours at the community center. I could work on assembly, packaging, quality control, whatever you need. You do that? We're partners now, right?" Even if it's unconventional, partners help each other. So Rachel accepted the order, and she and Michael spent the next 2 weeks working side by side. He learned quickly, his hands surprisingly skilled at the delicate work. They worked late into the night sometimes, talking about everything and nothing. Rachel learned he liked old movies and good books. He learned she could quote entire episodes of her favorite shows and made terrible puns when she was tired. Slowly, without really meaning to, they became friends. Real friends. The kind who could sit in comfortable silence or have long conversations that jumped from topic to topic. Rachel found herself looking forward to coming home each evening. Not to the apartment, but to him. And that scared her more than anything else about this strange situation. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. Heavy cardstock, expensive printing, Katie and Brian's names embossed in gold letters. Rachel stared at it in disbelief. You are cordially invited to the wedding of Catherine Chen and Brian Walsh. 2 months. They'd lasted 2 months before deciding to get married anyway. And they had the nerve to invite her. Inside was a handwritten note from Katie. I know this is awkward, but you're still my sister. It would mean a lot if you came. We want your blessing to move forward. Rachel showed it to Michael, who was drinking coffee and reading the news on his tablet. He read it twice, then looked at her with raised eyebrows. That's bold, he said. Are they serious? Apparently. The wedding is at Riverside Country Club. That's one of the most exclusive venues in the city. You need family connections just to book it. Michael's expression changed slightly, but Rachel was too focused on the invitation to notice. Are you going to go? Absolutely not. Why would I torture myself like that? But over the next week the pressure mounted. Her mother called daily, begging her to attend. It's time to let go of the past. Katie is your sister. Family forgives. People will talk if you don't show up. They'll say you're bitter and small. Her father tried a different approach. Be the bigger person. Show everyone you've moved on. Come with your husband. Show them you're happy. Even Lisa, her best friend, suggested she might consider going. I'm not saying you should forgive them. But maybe it would give you closure? Let you see that they're just two selfish people who deserve each other. Rachel was lying in bed one night, unable to sleep, thinking about the invitation. Michael knocked softly on her door. You okay? I heard you pacing. She opened the door. I can't decide about this wedding. Part of me wants to ignore it completely. Part of me wants to show up and prove I'm doing fine without them. Part of me wants to go just so I can watch it fall apart like my wedding did. Michael sat on the edge of her bed, keeping a respectful distance. What does your gut tell you? My gut says I'll regret it either way. If I go, I'll hate every minute. If I don't go, I'll wonder what I missed. Then maybe the question isn't whether to go, but how to go. If you're going to do this, do it on your terms. Walk in there with your head high, show them you're thriving, and leave before it gets uncomfortable. Easy to say, harder to do when everyone will be staring at me. The abandoned bride who married a stranger out of spite. Then don't go alone. I'll go with you. Michael said it simply, like it was obvious. We're married. It makes sense that I'd be there. And honestly, I'm curious to meet the people who thought it was okay to do what they did to you. Rachel studied his face. You don't have to do that. It'll be uncomfortable. My whole family will be there judging you, judging us. Let them judge. I don't care what they think. There was something in his voice, a confidence that made Rachel believe him, but it also made her more curious about who he really was. People who didn't care about judgment usually had a reason for that confidence. Okay, she said. Let's go. But we're leaving the second I want to leave, no arguments. Deal. The next few days were strange. Michael took time off from the community center to go shopping for a suit. Rachel was planning to wear something simple from her closet, but Michael insisted they both needed new clothes for this. If we're doing this, we're doing it right, he said. You're going to walk in there looking amazing. They went to a boutique that Rachel would normally never enter. The kind where there are no price tags and everything is designer. The saleswoman took one look at them and clearly decided they couldn't afford anything. She was polite but dismissive. Michael didn't seem to notice or care. He picked out 3 dresses for Rachel to try. All of them were beautiful, elegant, and probably cost more than her monthly rent. Michael, these are too expensive, Rachel whispered as the saleswoman reluctantly brought them to the fitting room. Don't worry about it, he said. Consider it an investment in psychological warfare. Rachel tried on the dresses. The second one was perfect. Deep blue, fitted but not tight. Elegant without trying too hard. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the confident woman staring back. She came out to show Michael. His expression changed, something flickering in his eyes that she couldn't quite read. That's the one, he said quietly. When they went to pay, The saleswoman finally looked at the total and tried to hide her surprise. That will be $3,000. Michael pulled out a credit card. Not a regular credit card, a black card. The kind Rachel had only heard about. The kind that had no spending limit and was only given to extremely wealthy people. The saleswoman's entire demeanor changed. Suddenly she was helpful, friendly, offering them champagne and asking if they needed anything else. Michael bought himself a suit too, custom-tailored, another few $1,000s like it was nothing. In the car on the way home, Rachel finally asked, "Michael, what's going on? That card you used. Those aren't given to people who work at community centers." He was quiet for a long moment, hands on the steering wheel, eyes on the road. "I've been meaning to talk to you about something." Rachel's heart started beating faster. "About what?" "About who I really am. About why I live the way I do. I haven't been completely honest with you, and you deserve to know the truth before we go to this wedding." He pulled over into a parking lot and turned to face her. "My full name is Michael Torres. Does that mean anything to you?" Rachel felt her stomach drop. "Torres Enterprises? Yeah, I'm the CEO, or I was before I took a step back about a year ago. My family owns the company. We're in tech manufacturing investments. The community center work is real. I do care about it. But it's not my only job." Rachel stared at him, trying to process this. "You're a billionaire." "More or less. Yes. And you live in that apartment? You work at a community center? You let me think you were struggling financially? I wasn't lying about any of that. The apartment is mine. I bought the building actually, but I live in the same unit. The community center is one of my projects. I fund it, but I also work there because I want to stay connected to real people, real problems. Why didn't you tell me?" Michael looked uncomfortable, vulnerable in a way she'd never seen him. "Because people change when they know. They either want something from me, or they act fake, or they can't see past the money to who I actually am. When you proposed to me in that park, you had no idea who I was. You just saw someone who seemed kind. That meant everything to me." "So this was a test? You were testing me?" "No, not a test. It was me being selfish. I wanted someone to see me, really see me, without all the other stuff getting in the way." "And you did. You treated me like a normal person. You didn't ask me for anything. You built your own business with your own hands. You're real, Rachel. Do you know how rare that is?" Rachel didn't know what to feel. Angry? Betrayed? Relieved, all of it at once? What about all those phone calls? The connections? The suppliers? I made some calls to people who owe me favors. But the business success? That's all you. Your designs, your customer service, your vision. I just opened a few doors. You walked through them yourself. They sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, Rachel said, "We're still going to this wedding? If you want to. But now you know. The man walking in there with you isn't a poor community center worker. He's someone who makes your ex look like a small-time player. If you want to make a statement, we can make a statement." Rachel thought about it. About Brian and Katie, who had betrayed her in the worst way. About her parents, who had blamed her instead of supporting her. About everyone who had looked at her with pity and judgment. "Let's make a statement," she said. The day of the wedding arrived. Rachel wore her blue dress and had her hair and makeup professionally done. Michael wore his new suit, and for the first time, she could see what he must look like in his real life. Powerful, confident, commanding. They arrived at Riverside Country Club in a car Rachel didn't recognize. It was sleek, expensive, and had a driver. Torres Enterprises keeps a few cars, Michael explained. Seemed like the right occasion to use one. As they walked toward the entrance, the valet's eyes went wide. "Mr. Torres? Sir, we didn't know you'd be attending. Please let me notify the manager." Within seconds, the country club manager appeared, practically tripping over himself to greet them. "Mr. Torres, what an honor. If I'd known you were coming, we would have prepared a special reception. Your family has been members here for 3 generations. Please let me show you to the VIP area." Rachel watched all of this in a daze. People were staring, whispering, pulling out phones. Michael Torres was here. The Michael Torres. And he was with her. They walked into the wedding venue. The ceremony was about to start. Rachel's family was in the front row. Her mother turned and saw them. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, shock, and finally something like fear. Katie was at the altar in her wedding dress. Brian stood next to her. They both saw Rachel and Michael at the same time. Brian went pale. Katie's smile faltered, but it was the reactions of everyone else that told the real story. The whispers grew louder. People were definitely searching on their phones now. The pieces clicking into place. Rachel's father approached them looking confused. "Rachel, who is this?" "Dad, you've been asking to meet my husband." "This is Michael. Michael Torres." Her father's eyes went wide. He knew the name. Everyone in business knew the name. "Torres, as in Torres Enterprises?" "The same," Michael said, shaking his hand firmly. "Nice to meet you, sir." Rachel's mother appeared, looking between them in disbelief. "This is your husband? The man you married?" "Yes, Mom, this is Michael. The poor community center worker you've been so worried about. Turns out he's worth about $500 million. Funny how things work out." The wedding ceremony started, but nobody was paying attention anymore. Everyone was looking at Rachel and Michael, whispering, staring. Brian kept glancing back at them, his face a mixture of regret and disbelief. Katie looked like she might cry, and not happy tears. Rachel felt Michael's hand find hers, squeezing gently. She looked up at him, and he gave her a small smile. "Not smug, not triumphant, just reassuring. Ready to go?" he whispered. "I think we've made our point." "Yeah," Rachel whispered back. "Let's go home." They walked out together, leaving the chaos behind them. As they got in the car, Rachel started laughing. Really laughing for the first time in months. "Did you see their faces?" she gasped between laughs. "Did you see Brian's face when he realized?" Michael was laughing too. "I particularly enjoyed your mother's expression. That was priceless. I can't believe you did this for me. You didn't have to reveal who you really are?" "Actually," Michael said, his expression turning serious, "I think I did, because somewhere along the way, this stopped being just a marriage of convenience for me, and you deserve to know the truth before we figured out what comes next." Rachel looked at him, really looked at him. The stranger she'd married in a moment of desperation had become someone she trusted, someone she cared about, maybe even someone she was falling for. "What does come next?" she asked softly. "That's up to you," Michael said. "But I'm hoping you'll want to stick around and find out." Rachel didn't go back to the apartment that night. Instead, Michael took her to his real home, the one he'd been keeping secret. They drove through the city to the most exclusive neighborhood, where houses were hidden behind gates and trees. He pulled up to a modern building that was more like a piece of art than a place to live. "This is where you actually live?" Rachel asked, staring up at it. "Sometimes. I keep the apartment because I like having a simple space. But this is the family home. I grew up here." Inside was even more impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Art that Rachel now recognized as actual originals, not reproductions. Furniture that belonged in magazines. It was beautiful, but it felt cold somehow. Empty. "I hate it here," Michael admitted, seeing her expression. "It's too big, too quiet. That's why I stay at the apartment most of the time. It feels more like home." They sat in his living room, both still dressed in their fancy clothes from the wedding, neither of them quite ready to let go of the evening. "I need to explain something," Michael said, "about why I live the way I do." "Why I lied to you?" "You didn't really lie," Rachel said. "You just didn't tell me everything. Same thing, though, isn't it? I let you believe something that wasn't true." He looked uncomfortable, vulnerable. 3 years ago, my best friend took his own life. He was like me, born into money, ran a family business. The pressure got to him. Everyone wanted something from him. Every friend, every relationship, every conversation was about what he could do for people, not about who he was. He couldn't tell the difference anymore between people who cared about him and people who cared about his money. Rachel stayed quiet, letting him talk. "After he died, I stepped back from everything. I put someone else in charge of the company and started working at the community center. I wanted to know if anyone would care about me when I was just Michael, not Michael Torres, billionaire CEO. Most people didn't. They looked right through me. And I realized my friend had been right. The money changes everything." "Until you met me," Rachel said softly. "Until I met you. You were having the worst day of your life, and you still treated me like a person. Not a wallet, not a business opportunity. Just someone who might understand what it felt like to be hurt." He looked at her directly now. "I know I should have told you sooner, but I was afraid. Afraid you'd start treating me differently. Afraid I'd lose the one real connection I'd made in years." Rachel thought about the past 2 months. The quiet dinners, the late-night conversations, the way they'd become friends without even trying. None of that had been about money. It had been about two people who fit together in an unexpected way. "I'm not going to lie and say I'm not a little angry," she said honestly, "but I also understand why you did it. And you're right. If you'd told me that first day, everything would have been different. I probably would have run away thinking you were too good to be true or that you had some weird angle." "So where does that leave us?" Rachel looked around the fancy living room, then back at Michael. "Can we still stay at the apartment sometimes? I know this place is impressive, but I like it there. It feels real." Michael smiled, really smiled. "Yeah, I'd like that too." Over the next few weeks, things shifted between them. Not dramatically, but gradually. Michael took Rachel to his office at Torres Enterprises, showed her what he actually did. She met his team, saw the charitable projects he funded, understood the scope of his work. It was impressive, but it didn't change how she saw him. He was still the guy who made her coffee in the morning and helped her package jewelry orders late at night. Her business was growing. The big corporate order had led to more opportunities. She hired 2 part-time assistants and moved her operation into a small studio space. Michael offered to invest, to make her an instant success, but she refused. "I need to do this myself," she told him. "Not because I don't trust you, but because I need to know I can. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," he said. "But if you ever need advice or a sounding board, I'm here." Her family tried to rebuild bridges. Her mother called, apologizing for not supporting her during the breakup. Her father invited them to dinner, suddenly very interested in getting to know his son-in-law. Katie sent long messages trying to explain herself, saying the wedding had been a mistake, that she'd realized too late that Brian wasn't who she thought he was. "They wouldn't care if you were still just a community center worker," Rachel said to Michael one evening. "Now they suddenly want to be involved." "That's probably true." "What do you want to do?" Rachel thought about it. "I want to forgive them eventually, but on my terms, not theirs. They need to understand they can't just come back because it's convenient. They hurt me, and I get to decide when and how we fix that." "That sounds healthy," Michael said, "and wise." Brian tried to contact her too. Multiple messages, emails, even showing up at her studio once. She finally agreed to meet him for coffee, with Michael waiting nearby if she needed him. Brian looked terrible. Thinner, tired, stressed. "I made a huge mistake," he said. "The biggest mistake of my life. I should never have left you. Katie and we weren't right together. I realize now that you were the one I should have married." "Do you realize that, or do you realize I'm married to someone wealthy?" Rachel asked calmly. Brian had the decency to look ashamed. "I won't lie. Seeing who you married, seeing how well you're doing, it made me realize what I lost. But even before I knew about Michael's money, I knew I'd messed up. You were stable, supportive, real. Katie was just excitement and chaos. It burned out fast." "I'm glad you figured that out," Rachel said, "but it doesn't change anything. I've moved on. You need to do the same. Are you happy with him? Really happy?" Rachel thought about it honestly. "I'm happier than I've been in a long time. He sees me, Brian, really sees me. Not who he wants me to be. Not some version he's trying to mold me into. Just me. Did I ever do that? See you, I mean?" "No," Rachel said, not unkindly. "You saw potential. You saw someone who fit into your life plan. But you never really saw me." Brian left looking defeated. Rachel felt bad for him, but she didn't regret anything. That chapter of her life was closed. She was writing a new one now.